All right. What's up, everybody? Sitting here with our good friend Tim Moreland. Tim is an electrician out of Fraser, Colorado, owner and operator of Power to the People Electric out there in Colorado. Tim, thanks so much for being on. Right on. So, Tim, I like to start this way with everybody. I like to just kind of get a little bit about, kind of tell us who you are, how long you've been doing it, a little bit of kind of how you got started in the trades.
Um, so my whole path was I started off part-time in high school, working for a guy, and I was kind of interested. Once I got out of high school, I really didn't want to go to college, and I was able to get on with a really good company down in Denver,
Okay.
and did my training there, and then I got my journeyman's in '86, and I was about 22, and then the whole SNL thing went down. And so it started slowing down. I had all these journeymen in my ear, like, "Oh, you don't want to be in this trade," and because they'd gone
Oh,
through a big,
wow.
like a big pay cut.
Okay.
And so I went up to Colorado State, and I wound up getting a degree in landscape architecture,
Okay.
and I was an electrician to get through that. And then I wanted to pursue my hillbilly dreams, and I wanted to be a and so I moved up to Grand County, uh, and I started off working as a planner for local government, and quickly figured out that wasn't for me, and
Huh.
this was my best available option. So I worked for a guy for 2 years, and then I started my business.
Okay.
So
So you tried a bunch of different things.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. What were the things that what were the pros and cons of the other things that you did outside of electrical work in that period of time that like kind of kept you coming back to the trade?
I like moving around. I mean, I can't sit at a desk long, and that's kind of what the county gig was sitting at a desk and typing
Yeah.
away, and that's just not my thing. And so that's why I got back into it. And at that time, honestly, it was best available option.
Okay.
But I enjoy it. I like the people in the trades, and I enjoy electrical in particular.
Was your focus primarily in one facet of trade work, commercial, residential?
Well, when I worked in Denver, I did a lot of tenant finish and
Okay.
industrial stuff.
Cool.
So I'd wired houses, but not that many. And so when I got up here, that was kind of the bulk of the work.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, so that was definitely the first part of my career here was doing a lot of houses. And
Okay.
we branched off from that a lot. And I don't know, I got mixed feelings about houses, but they're okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think that every avenue gives me mixed feelings for sure. There's like always some component that you have to suffer for, you know what I mean?
yep,
In
yep,
residential, definitely, we all know the residential ones. It's like I don't. Yeah, I'm with you. It's tricky. There are things I like about commercial big time. I really, really like when you're in a tenant fit out space where you just kind of have the space. There's nobody over your shoulder. There's like you know what the project is and you're working to
yeah,
complete it. But homes are tighter, more personal.
yeah,
You're right there with them. Typically, they're in the same space as you as you're working.
right, right.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah. No, I like
Yeah.
the stuff, and I got my crew is, I got some guys. We're just like kind of we're oriented that way to begin with, which I love.
Okay.
But it's like
Yeah.
I love stuff that we have no idea,
Huh.
like because up here it's there's people, but it's and other ECs, but most of them are just doing houses. But we get the call when it's weird stuff. So
Can you give
um,
me an example of what a weird thing would be?
yeah, like we got one job coming up that's we're going to work on a DMX system
Hmm.
up at this camp, and it's like, all right, I've never done that. I don't know a whole lot about DMX, but
I don't know anything. What's a DMX system?
so it's really in the world of theater lighting and sound.
Okay.
That's the control system for the lighting.
Roger. Okay.
So we don't really have to program the system, but we just had to come up with a basic understanding of what they're talking about.
Interesting.
So we have that one coming up. We do a lot of water and sanitation work.
Okay.
And I was really lucky in that world. Like the first time we got that call, I was like, I don't know what 4 to 20 is. I didn't know anything really about the control side. I was like a basic, relay and control voltage guy. And
Yeah. Okay.
I was super fortunate that there's this engineering company out of Denver, great guy named Johnny Walker. And we went to a facility and he spent a couple hours with me and help me get my arms around the premise of how these places work. And that was probably, I don't know, like 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And so we got a really good footprint in that world now where we don't do all the districts up here, but we do a lot of them, and it's just fix-its and modifications to existing systems, and it's really good work.
That's really interesting. So like we face that all the time too, where there's that contrast between doing the same thing every day. Like if you did the same thing every day, and sometimes you get in those rhythms, you get really good at it, but you also can get burned out doing the same thing every day. It becomes monotonous. So there's this fine line between like what sort of new things do we take on? What risks do we take? Because every time you do something new where you have no idea what you're doing, you're gonna mess up.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Like what makes me even more frustrated is when I study hard and try to get it exactly right and I still I still miss something, or it's like the dangers in taking on things you have no idea what you're doing are there. But I think it is worthwhile. It's like how you get better at everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I think one good resource, like since you have a partner
Yeah.
with Josh, I
Yeah.
mean, that's one thing that we use a lot is I have two other guys in particular that have a really broad range of experience.
Okay.
And so I always tell people it's like, yeah, one of us by ourselves might get stumped,
Yeah.
but if we drag in the other guy, we've never gotten stumped. We can always
Yeah.
figure it out.
That's cool. That's awesome.
And what the other thing is like I remember when I first started my business, I would get myself in a situation where I'd have the oh my God moment where I just didn't know. And
Yeah.
so this is like pre-internet, it's like pre having a guy to call kind of thing. I
Sure.
just
What would
didn't
you
have
do?
any just sleeping on it and calming down. And it's
Yeah.
amazing what if you
Yeah.
just take your foot off the gas and let your brain do its thing. It's like
Hmm.
it's all about staying calm to me that
Yeah, it's
you're
true.
kind of able to have these breakthroughs.
Yeah. I always find that when in with that same concept, when I'm trying really hard, even psychologically, to overcome some idea or like, process something.
Yeah.
Every time I take a break from the strain of trying to understand something or whatever, whenever I take that break,
Mm.
it hits me. It comes to you. It's like you're supposed to do that, I think.
Yeah. And I think I don't, it took me a long time for that light to come on,
Yeah.
but it was liberating when it did, because
Yeah.
then it's like, you can just stay,
Calm.
calm. It's like, all right, I don't know right now, but I'm going to know eventually,
Correct.
y-
We'll
you
figure it
know?
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what being a master electrician is. Like when it's just a piece of paper, it's just a test one day,
Yeah.
and that's it. So it doesn't change anything. It just gives you the license to go mess up and
Yeah.
not and miss things or try and have to overcome what that feels like and how that looks and how you do it in the future. All those things. When you get a master's license, you are licensed to make a fool of yourself until
Yeah.
you get it right,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So when you were like, I guess from if I'm looking at your trajectory, you once you got licensed, you got rolling, it seems, with the company, correct?
Yeah. Pretty close. One thing that Colorado had, back in the 80s, once you hit 3 years, 6 months as an apprentice, you could pull a permit
Oh,
They
cool.
called it a permit, and you could start working as a journeyman. And but then at the 4 year mark, you don't pass the test, then it's over.
Oh, wow.
So they don't do it that way anymore. But yeah, so I did that. I was able to start working at 3 years, 6 months,
Cool.
and that's why I was. Um, and then when I got back in the trade and I worked for this guy up here for a couple of years, I don't know that I really was like hell bent on opening a company, but he was a nightmare to work with, and
Okay.
and
Was it
so
just the two of you, just you and him?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay.
he had a couple other guys here and there, but
Okay.
anyway, I just decided to hell with it, man. I'm gonna do my own thing, and honestly, it was like I just wasn't smart enough to be scared,
Right.
and so I
That's been my superpower in my life.
right,
I'm
right,
just dumb enough to do it. That's right.
right. So yeah, so I basically, I had never worked in an office, and
Sure.
I had about really like 6, 7 years under my belt, rock solid, and then I started it, and it was me and a guy for I was solo for a year, me and a guy for a year, and then where it really took off for me was in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a big competitor had closed up,
Okay.
and I was able to just slowly get these guys that used to work there. So I was really getting like the cream of the crop for
Oh,
electricians up
wow.
here, you
Okay.
know. So, three of them. So I have three masters
Wow.
of myself. So three guys that have no interest in, they're not really interested in being in business.
Right. Yeah.
And then, and then uh, I have three apprentices. So, so that's where we sit now.
That's
You
really
know.
cool. And you feel like that's another thing that like because we've got one apprentice right now.
Yeah.
Um, how far were you into your company when you started bringing people on? Like you said, you were a couple years in. It was you and another guy. When was your first hire?
So after year one, I got an apprentice. You
Okay.
know, and then he was a great guy, but it just wasn't his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it built up really slow for me. I mean, I hovered around four guys for probably for about 10 years,
Okay.
and then like I was saying, it was like in 10 or 11 where it kind of started to take off.
Okay.
And the thing that always worked out well for me, and intentionally or unintentionally, for sure on the apprentice side, was I always hired the person first,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and because it seems like if you solid person to begin with, they
Right.
can learn to be an electrician,
I
and
agree.
it's weird, yeah, it's more about meeting him, talking to him about almost anything but work, and
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
and get a feel for what they're like, and then you can go from there.
I agree. I think you can teach anybody like that. Anybody who wants to learn
Yeah.
can be taught. It's the good attitude and the wanting to learn. It's the like, it's the person who when they don't get something right,
Hmm.
they go home that night and they look it up and they try to understand it better. Those are
Hmm.
those are the people who really, man, you get a couple people like that and you're doing great. Because that's the thing, just like you can't teach somebody who doesn't want to learn,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anybody who wants to, man, sky's the
Yeah.
limit, right?
Well, and then too, I mean, that said, the other, the other thing is like, what kind of culture do you have in your shop?
Yeah.
And when I came up in the trade, I got along really well for I did my apprenticeship down in Denver, but they were hard asses. It was a much different time. I mean, it didn't take too many bad days, and you were out the door because it was 10 deep, guys
Yeah.
wanting that job.
Yeah, for sure.
And I never, I never forgot that, and
Yeah.
I never thought it was great because it's I don't think it's a good environment uh, for sure with how people are today. But
Yeah.
even back then, I never thought it was really fair, you
Yeah.
know. And so I've always had that in the back of my mind, like remembering employee perspective and my perspective,
Yeah.
you know? And so I try and keep my shop like, I'm not a yell and scream guy.
Hmm.
I'll tell people what they don't want to hear, but I'm like, I'll tell it to them just like we're talking now.
Sure.
And I think it really works.
Yeah.
And then I try and keep really realistic expectations about what people's own lives are like, especially the
Mm.
last, really for sure the last two, but even like the last 4 years, it's like, we're all fighting some courageous battle,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's wild,
it's,
right?
yeah. So I try and, um, I go out of my way to work with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's
Um,
cool.
I mean, that said, it's like, I can't say there's been guys that it just didn't work out because
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
just a different set of values from my own. But
Yeah.
that's probably the single biggest thing that has paid big dividends for me. Cause I mean, I got my longest guy is 17 years. I
Hmm.
got 3 guys that are 10
Wow.
and everybody else is over 2 and they all say they're happy. So, I mean, hopefully they are,
What are some of the what do you feel like? I mean, aside from those core values that you hold where you try to focus on people's lifestyles, think from the perspective of the employee, are there like from a leadership standpoint, what are some things that you try to employ to keep people motivated or focused or learning or growing, setting the example, you know?
I try and this has been a little weird lately, but typically I try and be in the field. I
Cool.
don't ask guys to do things that I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I kind of make a point of it. Like um, if 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 a hole needs dug, you know, it's like
Hmm.
nothing like seeing, if they see me doing it, then there's less to complain about, you know.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
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 And the other thing too is like I go to bat big with them on the money,
Okay.
you know. I mean, this is one important message. Uh, I mean, especially for this platform, and I know
Hmm.
this is a regional thing, but I'll tell you this. So, in the early '80s, a journeyman in Denver was making 19.10 an hour
Okay.
plus benefits, and when that whole savings and loan thing went down in '86, that was one of the reasons that I left the trade was they went to 16.10.
Oh, wow.
So, so back then, a guy could have an okay house and an okay car, and if they were raising a family, you know, the wife could stay at home or whoever, but
Hmm.
you'd be okay,
Okay.
And so now, you know, if you Google those dollars to today, you could
Yeah.
argue that a journeyman, not like a guy that's been around 10 plus years or whatever,
Yeah.
that it's a $54 an hour position.
Wow.
So and that's just using those dollars to today.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been pushing that rock uphill with my nose for years. It doesn't have much of an audience, but it is true, you
Hmm.
know. And I think money goes a long ways. I think guys feel undervalued at times.
I agree. Yeah.
Um, but the money. I've kind of recently come to think that it's like the culture is as valuable, especially to my young guys. It's as valuable as the money.
Yeah.
So
I agree. So, one of the things, and we've talked about this recently on the show, but some of the things that Josh and I are in the process of struggling through is money,
yeah,
um, because we're blue collar simpletons who came from simple, now that we are business owners and we're trying to understand how do we pay people what they're worth, because and
yeah.
how do we take care of them, not just say, hey, we need help, let me pay as little as we would love to be able to create that culture, but pricing everything is where our minds are right now. How have you
Uh-huh.
learned and evolved in that game to be able to price out things so that it works for your company?
I think so. I think to me, step one is I've got this spreadsheet and I keep really close track of my burden rate. So that's like all the insurances, the vehicles, the insurances, everything.
Yeah.
And I try and keep it really real. I mean, in a perfect world, the guys should do 2,000 hours a year. but I use 1,500 because nothing ever goes as planned.
Sure. Right.
So I use in that spreadsheet, I use 1,500 hours per guy to kind of figure out what my burden rate really is,
Okay.
and then yeah, and then just go from there. And
Okay.
I price aggressively. I think what we what we sell is that we're there and we're pleasant.
Yeah.
We people enjoy. I get a lot of positive feedback that people enjoy my guys, and I'm not saying we never have scheduling problems by any
Sure.
part. We're there when we're supposed to be, and we try to do a good job.
Okay.
So
Been such a challenging thing to grow through for sure.
yeah,
Just kind of like understanding that. I think when you first start, I don't think you know what nobody we just don't know what you're doing. You're just like, well, what's everybody else doing? What are they charging? And trying to play in that realm. And it's not until you really look at, okay, yeah, I mean maybe what would it look like if we had two employees in a truck, another truck?
right.
What's that look
Well,
like? And go backwards from there.
yeah. I mean, every market's different. I mean, one
Yeah.
thing that's really changed here is between the supply chain issues and then the whole employee thing here, getting extra help is just on steroids to get dependable people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got to a point uh, about 2 years ago where I just went all time and material
Okay.
because that's what I told customers. I'm like, look, I don't have any idea what the material is going to cost, and
Yeah.
labor is a commodity too, and I don't know what that
Right.
you know
Wow. Yeah,
because
sure.
you get some guy and you're just getting ready to start a big job and they show up and tell you, well, I just don't think I could make it happen for less than 30 an hour. And
Wow.
I just don't want to be trapped,
Sure. That
So
makes sense. So yeah, and I think it's all about the communication too. Like wherever you are with your pricing structure, so long as you can communicate that effectively to the person you're selling it to, right?
yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I think, um, for guys like us, our size, I mean, we're small operators and
Hmm.
everything. But I think a lot of small operators totally underappreciate how far they have their neck stuck out.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand the risk that's really there. And so, um, you just have to unapologetically be making a reasonable profit,
Right.
to keep the
Right.
doors open and just, and try and sell them with service.
Right. Sure. Do you guys specialize in anything? Are there any, aside from like being residential or whatever, is there anything that you guys market yourself toward?
Um, we started doing a lot more service. But again, it's like we just do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
We take care of the airport lighting on
Hmm.
two little GA airports nearby.
Cool.
We do the water and sanitation work. We do service. We do residential. We're actually Lutron guys. We're trained
Okay.
up Lutron guys.
Really?
Yeah, we don't sell a lot. I mean, we'll sell RA3 and R2 pretty frequently, but like wired systems, we probably haven't sold a wired system in 5+ years.
Okay, gotcha. Do you feel like it's
So
just not the demographic in your area?
yeah, I mean that's Aspen stuff, you know.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
big shops over there I mean, there's probably like two, maybe three of them, and that's all they do.
Okay. Wow.
So, and
Okay.
this is a resort town. Like the resort here is Winter Park. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever heard of that,
No.
but so we're kind of it's a historically it was like a big Denver second home kind of
Okay.
place, you know. And
Yeah.
but there's a lot of people just moving here now. It's become unhinged, and there's lots of fancy houses, and so we do like 5 to 7 fancy houses a year,
Okay.
and then kind of infill with service and maintenance and all these other places I was talking about.
Do you work,
So
so when you do the homes, new homes, you work with a contract team that you like?
yeah, we I stay away from the home builder association crowd, and
Okay.
I got core guys that, I mean, they're like guys I've known for like, I don't know, like 20 plus years.
Cool.
You know them, you like them, you trust
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
they're reasonable. So
Sure.
I concentrate on them.
Cool. That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
It's nice to have. It's nice to know a group of people that you feel like you can trust and bring you
yeah.
reliable work. That's great.
I know for you guys, I mean, do you feel like I mean, are you starting to pull together a set of builders that you like being around and you trust them and
It not really, not yet. I feel like we, I don't know. I think we just had an experience this week where um, there's one team in town that we sometimes do work with, and um, it just kind of comes to us, and we kind of take it and roll with it. And the hardest part is typically scheduling, like heads up. We typically don't get a heads up till they're in there working, and they say, "Hey, you can come on over and start working." And I'm like, I'm booked like a month out, man. What do Anyway, but that's recently we had this experience where, I made a mistake where I looked at a renovation that was going to be done by new buyers for this historic home.
uh,
And because they were in this hurry to get things going, they wanted numbers, and the GC or this contractor just basically said, or could have even been the real estate agent, just get them some numbers, shoot at something you think it might be, but they're just trying to move forward. So I hit him with some numbers, and just literally in my write-up of my proposal explicitly stated, this is not based on anything. Like,
right?
like this is just a guess. There's no drawings, there's no plan. I don't even know what's going on. Here's a number. Enjoy the number. And
Yeah.
so then they want to do the work. And so when they want to do the work, I get a hold of the clients personally and I say, hey, I want to get you some real numbers. So I'd love to walk through this with you and
Hmm.
actually hear what your plans are and get you some numbers. My numbers came in about 1,600 higher than my original proposal, which was just a guess. So it was a pretty good guess. But
Yeah, that's a really
I
good
get this
guess.
call. I get this call from this guy who's like, "Why are your numbers higher?" And I'm like, "Well, as I mentioned, and as it says explicitly in my original, it's not based on any. I don't need you. Nobody has spoken to me about what the plan. What am I basing it on? It's my mistake for doing that in the first place. I should have just said, no. If I can see some drawings, then sure, I get you some numbers."
Hmm.
And so he just kind of kept trying to beat me up on it. And in his telling me, like, hey, man, we need the numbers lower. And I'm just saying, I'm sorry. I even told him, there's plenty of other people. I'm sure you can find somebody. He mentions to me that this contractor even said that the numbers were high. And it's a
Hmm.
guy, and look, that kind of stuff happens. It's not like he's maliciously trying to do anything. But at the same time, and what I said to the guy on the phone is, well, he's not a master electrician and he doesn't own my company. What do you,
Yeah.
it's those circumstances where I just they don't work in our favor all the time. And when you're not working with the right crew and it's not for us, and we're probably just nitpicky, but we like to set the scene for our work. We like to establish the boundaries so that the people we're working with know what to expect. Nothing's a surprise. And
Yeah.
when we're in that environment where it's on somebody else's terms and timelines and suggestions, and it just doesn't work for us. We come out looking like we're slow or we're slowing things down. And anyway, it's been our experience, and so maybe we just haven't found the right team.
No, but I mean, all that kind of stuff takes time. I mean, so
Yeah,
the process you described is like that you spelled that out where you're like, I've never seen plans. I've never, all this is, the wave of a hand,
yeah,
and this is my guess. I mean, that's as good of a CYA as you can get,
yeah,
because
yep,
you'll get these yahoos out there. They do that stuff all the time.
yep,
But like I think long game for you guys. I mean, I think it's great. Like
yeah,
you know what you're about. You know what you want to do. But I think that's the part that's hard is like how much time it takes.
yeah,
You know, because
yeah,
I mean, I just got my head down and I marvel now. Like I still don't really think that way, but I'll have guys make comments to me. It's like, oh, you just get to pick and choose whatever you want now, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Isn't
still
that
working every day, but it
yeah?
it it
That's the
took
point, though,
time.
right? Yeah, that's the point. Is you dial it in over time, right?
Yeah, you're gonna find the people that you'll love them. and
Yeah. Yeah.
they love you. And it's like,
Right.
so it's mutually beneficial. And I
And
just think it
yeah,
takes time to get that established,
I would agree. I agree with that. And we've definitely found a lot. Like we've got so many
Mhm.
clients that you know it when you meet them. Just like they know
Right.
it when they
Yeah.
meet you. It's like we'll do a lot of fun projects together. Um,
Yeah.
and then you just have to. You're right. You do have to weed through a lot of people, um, and circumstances, and it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of like get back up, get back on the horse. And I think it can be frustrating. It's like you try not to take it personally, but it's like, man, you know, I think, and I don't know if it's wrapped up in me wanting to be. I'm like a people pleaser. I want
Yeah.
the person, I want the person to want to hire us. I want to sell this job. I want them to see our work. Um,
Yeah.
and when it doesn't quite line up, there's something grating there, right?
I know. I think, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's like, I used to take stuff personal, and now
Mm,
I don't care at all. I mean,
good.
I think you have confidence in who you are
Yeah.
and what your company's about,
Yeah.
and maybe it's just not meant to be. So like when we don't get something, I always tell people just thanks for the opportunity,
Yeah.
and
No doubt.
if I can help you in
Sure.
the future, do it.
Yeah.
I always try and uh, I just never want to burn the bridge, you
Sure.
know.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it can be tricky, man. I think one of the harder parts is like maintaining the all of it because not only are, when you're a tradesperson who owns a company, not only are
mhm.
you a tradesperson, you're a licensed technician, but and that comes filled with challenges,
Yeah,
mistakes, new trials, but so does simultaneously all of the business stuff. So the one of the hardest parts about it is sustaining. Like, how have you been able to for you've run a business for 27 years, you said?
yeah, yeah.
How what are some of the techniques you've found over time that have helped you kind of sustain things and keep that? Always talk about the long game, like, because the long game's hard no matter
Yeah.
how you slice it. Like, you can be motivated about something, but time will take that motivation and dissipate it. It's
Oh,
like so what are some things that you've learned?
well, I think the longer you do it, you do kind of get reprogrammed, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
as far as like, how big of a beat down you're willing to take.
Yeah.
I know I always tell my guys, it's like, yeah, it used to be fun. And I did used to be a lot, I used to be a lot more fun, like, getting the powder days and, taking trips and all
Sure.
that. And, now I'm just, it's been that way for 10 years. I'm just like, man, I'm a worker, and, um, keep this schedule much longer. I'm going to probably try and hand it off. But, um, I think, um, that the biggest thing is just picking the projects you want to be on if you can,
Hmm.
that you're going to enjoy being there and being at work. I think the other big thing is, like, especially in this market, I think it's good to say no a lot,
Yeah.
because like what's going on, jobs drag out, and so you're all of a sudden you have a hole in the schedule, and somebody else will call, and instead of saying no, you say yes, and then 6 months later you're ready to jump off a bridge because now your schedule's really a mess.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
so
Yeah.
I think when you're building, it's like, and this keeps it livable for you as well, is,
Yeah.
I've heard you mention, you guys, you're happy when, you got a Friday afternoon and there's nothing to do or whatever it
Sure.
is. But
Yeah.
if you keep, since it's just three of you, you keep that little bit of slack in the schedule, and then, you're to me, you're accomplishing two things, or three things really. It's like, all right, you're sanity,
Mm.
you're providing a positive work environment for your apprentice, and since you're not just stacked up and buried, you're providing a better customer experience
Yeah.
for your business, which is huge for, you know
Yeah.
just trying to keep attracting the next great customer that you want.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I had like a Jerry Maguire experience this year where it's like when you have so many clients or so many jobs to do, there's just this, it's so challenging and nearly impossible to give everything your focus, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
We all deal with that. We all go through job to job to job. But man, it is if you can figure out how to spend more time, more quality time working on a project with a specific person and have that work for
Yeah.
your business model, that's the way to go.
Yeah. I mean, how do you guys do how do you bid stuff there? What's it like
You mean
for you
like
guys?
how do we get projects coming through the door?
No, I mean like just like kind of meat and potatoes when
Oh,
you get a project and you're putting together a bid. I mean, you're using software, or did you make your own spreadsheets, or how did you guys do it?
we go pretty straightforward. I mean, we try to look at systems more when we're pricing bigger projects.
Hmm.
As far as like determining what our time footprint might be at a place to knock out a rough in or something like that. We'll draw on experience, obviously,
Right.
but then just try to look at the systems. Like if we're doing a rewire of an old knob and tube house and we were going to price that, we'd look at the systems and we'd say, well, we've got to get, first thing we've got to do first system is dust protect. How long is that going to take?
Right.
Next thing
Uh-huh.
we got to get home runs in. How long is that going to take? We got to set boxes, do circuit run. So we try to break things down on a time frame like that when it's a big project, and then we shoot for a margin on our materials. So we as opposed to marking things up, we try to hit a margin on our numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's bigger stuff. Smaller stuff we try to it's not flat rate pricing necessarily, but we price per project as opposed to giving an hourly rate,
Yeah.
so as opposed to saying, because I feel like if you're pricing hourly, you can get caught in that concept of like, it's almost like looking at a receipt of something where people are looking at the items on the receipt, and I've heard Sean Van Dyke talk about this, how when itemized receipts can cause confusion and
Oh,
distrust
right.
because but it's almost like if people are calling and they're asking for your hourly rate, they want to save money, and that makes perfect sense to me because I own a house too and I want to save money too. But it a lot of times won't make sense for us to take on a project if they're, you know what I mean? It's hard to know. We'd love to take the projects that are a day to 3 days, whatever
Yeah.
that may be, lighting, um, EV chargers, new panels, things like that,
Yeah.
basement rewires, where there's like you're going to be there for that period of time. Your 8 hours are covered that day, because that's the trickiest part. When you're doing service and you're piecemealing a day together, it's
Yeah.
hard to get your operational costs covered on a day where you're kind of piecemealing it.
Well, yeah, and then too, the other one I always think about is like all the unpaid time you got, tapping away and doing this. So that's why, like, especially bidding, it was like, I don't know. We used turbo bid for a long time
Okay.
on new construction stuff, and it's a I think for small operators like ourselves, I think it's the best. It's so
Huh.
cool.
What does that offer?
Well, the thing I like, it's so customizable. Like
Huh.
you can get in there and tweak your own assemblies and make them your own.
Huh.
And then, that's kind of a time commitment. But once you have it, it's really good, and it speeds up your bid process.
Huh. That sounds
And
great.
and then it also produces documents that'll give you your rough in material list and your trim material list.
Hmm.
So that's kind of cool, but I don't use it that much anymore um, because the amount of time that would go into like front end bidding, and then like managing change orders and this and that and the other thing,
Yes. Right.
especially on a custom home, I was like, my God, how
What's the
about
point?
let's just let's
Yeah.
let's just call it a cab. It's
Yeah.
like when we're in the cab, the meter's running, man, and you got to
That
pay.
correct.
And
Yeah.
so I can, like, if we do bill out net 30 on a custom home,
Hmm.
um, you know, it takes me about I can knock it out in an hour.
That's good.
And if we're doing change orders and formal bid and tracking all that, I mean, I can screw around with that for 5 to 8 hours. I mean,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, so we run everything through QuickBooks, and I feel like they offer they offer some things too, like saving templates and saving like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can kind of set up a job through QuickBooks, and then they'll save it under that title. So I also I'll keep templates of email write-ups I'll send, or invoice content. Like if I'm basically taking the time to describe the process of something we're
Hmm.
going to do, I'll keep that template because I'm definitely going to have to describe that process to somebody else, and I
Yeah.
can just kind of cut and paste that. So I'm learning to like save time in little ways like that too.
Yeah. How long's all your, like your inclusions and exclusions and
It's
terms and conditions?
we're like 2.5 pages. It's not
That's
too bad.
good.
It's not too bad. But we've
No,
only
that's
been in
good.
business. We've only been in business 3 years, so
Right.
I'm sure it will grow based on the experiences that we are about to encounter.
I know, my God, I had a guy put a gutter up on the shop,
Yeah.
and well, it was a bigger company, but it was like, I'm not kidding you, it was like 25 feet of gutter, and yeah, it was about a 10-page document. So I was like, well, there you go. I mean, you find out they've had every ass weapon available to man.
That's
You know, was yeah, it was all listed out.
dude. Every time something comes up or happens, we are
Yeah,
like policy. I've said it before. It's like because you have to, because you don't know until you know, and then when
yeah,
you know, it's too late, and you're already losing money,
yeah,
and some people will get you. Some people will say like, "Well, you didn't say it that way." It's like, "Yeah, you're right. I didn't say it that way." Damn it!
well,
Like, yeah,
I'm big on the emails. I'm like, I
yeah,
don't want I didn't hear it on the phone. I didn't,
yes,
I'm like,
yes.
I want it all in an email. I don't want a
I'm
text. I want it in an
I'm
email.
telling you, man. I don't the phone since we started this company. I want to throw my phone off a cliff.
Oh yeah,
It is for all the other elements that I use that phone for. That thing is awesome, but getting phone calls does not make any sense to me because I'm never not upside down or on a ladder or with a tool in
yeah,
my hand or talking to a client or driving or with my family. There's no time where I'm like, oh, perfect time to answer the phone. It just doesn't exist. So
yeah,
emails are the way, but we've been using Google Voice and we've been dialing that in too. So Google Voice
yeah.
offers. Do you use that? What do you guys use for your phones?
Well, I got an office manager,
Okay,
and
awesome.
she's a rock star. I mean, she's probably the best help I've ever had in my life. So what? Because it was a weird job, I had some gal before her that would answer the phone and do the QuickBooks, and so that started off in like '08,
Okay,
because I used to do all that, and so she
okay,
would do the QuickBooks and answer the phone, and she worked 8 hours a week, 2 4-hour days, and then when we got our shop, then we had more of a warehouse to deal with,
yeah,
and so my first person, she left, and then I got this gal Jenny, and so here's this weird hybrid job. The first gal didn't want to touch a box because she liked wearing nice clothes, and you
right,
know, but Jenny was like, she did the QuickBooks, a lot of it self-taught.
yeah, that's
And then
cool.
she's way nicer on the phone than I would ever be, and she would deal with the warehouse. But it was really weird. Her and her husband, I mean, they lived here like 25 plus years, and they just relocated to Tennessee.
All right.
And she tells me she's leaving, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a
Yeah,
heart
what are you gonna
attack. And
do? Right.
well, I was out doing a service change, and I was like, God, I bet she could do,
Remote?
half of this remote. And so
Yeah,
that's what we've done.
cool.
And it's been an ass kicker for me a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's been about 60 days, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll kind of have some revelations and make things better,
Hmm.
but I just don't want to get on that treadmill where, you get somebody, you train them, and then they're gone in a couple months, and just,
Man, how do you
uh,
avoid that, you know?
it's terrible. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd rather just work harder, really,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, because you end up
But
working harder.
yeah, but
Yeah.
her backup, back to your question, her backup is there's a company down in, I think they're in Florida or someplace, called Voice America,
Hmm.
and so if she's got to do something, it goes to them, and then I get an email,
Gotcha.
and it's okay. I mean, it most people around here, they're unless they're really big, you're just getting a voicemail
For
period,
sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I like what Google Voice offers. They do, they have these things called auto attendants where they can basically provide the caller with options.
hmm
So if you can't get to the phone, which we almost never can, at least the person has some form of options. And we've even changed our voicemail to start up front with, if you'd like to schedule a consultation or an appointment, visit the
hmm
website, because we've got a form. I'm like you. I emails and that's the way to communicate, because you can think about it.
yeah,
You're never in a position where somebody's saying, "What's a ballpark?" Because because you have time. When you're communicating with people, it can tend to get in these real negotiation situations, or sometimes there's some sort of lost in translation scenario. So I always feel like emails are pretty straightforward, and you've got it right in front of you.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I tell people straight up, I'm like, I'm not guessing. I hate guessing.
yeah,
If I guess wrong, you're gonna get mad at me. If
yeah,
I guess wrong, I'm gonna be mad at you.
yep, yep,
It's a silly game. You
yep.
know.
It's true.
So I don't know, but so what's the service or like the scheduling software that you guys are
That
using?
scheduling software for like right now we're just using Google Calendar. we were messing we were using something called Field Pulse.
Oh yeah, that was the one. I'd heard you say
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we picked up Field Pulse when we first started because we were looking for a voice over IP software more than anything. Like we needed a wireless internet phone system. And
hmm
so I think we had just had a conversation with one of the guys from Field Pulse on the podcast. It was an early episode. And so we figured, let's give it a shot. Um, and then we just realized that because it was just myself and Josh, it was really overkill. We really weren't using it for scheduling, and there was nobody to really dispatch. It was just the two of us. So we were just really using the VoIP, and it wasn't great. And so we changed to another voice over IP called Nextiva, and we hated it. It was glitchy and couldn't get it fixed. It was a rough. We went like a month and a half without a phone because we just couldn't get it working. And so then we
uh
jumped to Google Voice, and it's been a piece of cake. So that's my
So
testimonial for Google Voice.
so does your apprentice use Google Calendar then to
We
know
have
the
him.
what and the
Yep,
where?
yep. We have him set up with Google Calendar. Right now, it's just the three of us. We have a Google Calendar, and we color code it.
And then is that how he does like his time card entries and stuff like that? Or
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep.
uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
we went to I think we've been using it for about 10 years, but have you ever heard of Kickserve?
Mm-mm.
They're kind of like that,
Okay.
what you were talking about. I mean, it's an online, and it keeps everybody sees their schedule, and they can do all their time entries and job notes and material and stuff on there, and it works pretty good. I mean, there's a few little things to complain about, but I think probably whatever software you get, you could find something to bitch about.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like that's the thing about technology is it's always conceptually it's great. Like every time
Yeah,
I've jumped into some app that is going to solve some problem, it sounds great.
yeah,
Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it helps us keep organized, but the biggest thing
Cool.
is like my God, I mean, you got to get everybody to drink the Kool-Aid. And
Yes, and yeah, the buy-in's hard.
yeah, so when we rolled it out, we met like once a week and tried to answer questions and get it, we were all learning together for sure.
Sure.
And so we got proficient, but now it's like I just, we have to revisit it a lot to get everybody to like come on,
Sure.
because it
Okay.
can be so powerful. Like
Yeah.
for us, it's like, somebody that we did call the shop, and it's like, oh, what went on? And then rather than, one of Jenny or myself having to call, if the guys make good notes, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's great. And that's what I always tell them. It's like, I don't care if you sit in the driveway for a half an hour, but we got to know all the details and we got to know all the material and you got to get your time in. And to me, that's all part of the job as well.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, but it's a good tool for us for sure.
Did you put that in place after? I would imagine so. After you had a staff on hand, so everybody kind of had to learn it. Do you feel like, because I've been encouraged by people to try to get that process under our belt before we bring people on. Do you feel like it might be pros,
I would,
cons on that?
I think if you guys, once you wind up at like 4 total,
Okay.
it'd probably be a really, really good tool for you.
Okay.
You know, I
Yeah.
know I think about, because I listen to you all the time, and I think about, I was thinking about it a lot actually this last week about, when all your arguments for staying small and this and
Hmm.
that, and I think you're wise to do it if you can pull it off.
Okay.
I mean, the one thing that's weird, I mean, just looking back, it just blows my mind how different it is now
Yeah.
than it was 27 years ago. I mean, uh, just the way people think and work and is completely on. And so, back to what I was saying about how much time I used to take time off and I just can't now. So now I kind of feel like I'm in the process of trying to unwind,
Okay.
which is actually not a lot different than when you're trying to ramp it up.
Interesting.
It's really dicey. You know what I mean? It's like,
Huh.
I mean, short of just like, you're going 30 miles an hour and you throw the anchor in. I mean,
Sure.
you it's just telling people no a lot more and just being
Okay.
more selective and infilling with these smaller jobs I'm trying to unwind it a little bit, and I have a guy
Hmm.
that might be interested in taking it over, but I think back to, when it was just me and 3 other guys, it was like, I was getting a couple of weeks of vacation. I'd get
Yeah.
a cool ski trip every year. We'd hit these little weird slack times. Nobody seemed to mind, you
Yeah.
know, and but when it just turns into no man's land in so many arenas. Like once, I swear to God, it's like once you go past like 6 or 8, I mean, like one, it's hard to have a really good control over your burden rate,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
just the benefits and everything that people
Sure.
reasonably expect, of course,
Of course.
but
Right.
but yeah, your burden rate climbs up and the compliance pressures climb up, and a lot of times when you're that size, it's like, there is no money for an HR person. It's like,
Hmm.
that's and
Yeah.
and it just becomes this huge drain on, the time that you used to get to spend doing the things that you enjoyed, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah. And I'm worried about that, and I feel that.
Hmm.
It's just hard to like, what is the how do we and it may just be time in, and it may just be a process of dialing in the things we're already doing, right? Like, um, a lot of it is also like you've got to look at, like if you look at a football game, for example, this comes to mind. It's not just the plays where the offense moves the ball forward. You have to factor in the plays where they lose ground and they
Right.
make mistakes and they go backwards, because that's part of it too. Like it's never a straight line forward. Um,
Hmm.
even like I said earlier, even when you're trying to not mess it up,
Yeah.
it's almost inevitable. Some of these projects we take on are so multifaceted, um, and they're one on top of the next. So it's just, I don't know, man. It's how do we do it so that we can stay small, but we can make a living that warrants the amount of work that is so much work all the time, you know?
Yeah. I don't know.
So
I think it's like, how big is Fredericks? Is it Fredericksburg? Is it?
it's Frederick.
Yeah,
Fredericksburg's
Frederick. Yeah.
Virginia, maybe
Hmm.
2 hours south of here. Frederick's pretty big. I think we are. Well, it's not pretty big. For a small town, it is.
Yeah.
Um, I want to say I'll mess up the number, so I don't know. But it's not just Frederick. It's that DC is south, Washington DC south, and then Baltimore is up here to the east. And so there's
Yeah.
kind of this um, suburban sprawl rash that surrounds all of those spaces, and that just it's just one big rash now, and it encompasses Frederick as well. So while we're kind of out here on the back end of this metropolis, it is getting bigger, and DC's definitely coming here. I've seen more Maseratis and Alfa Romeos in my town than ever before, so
Yeah.
they're coming. They're coming.
Yeah. So it's like, so these are like suburban dwellers and they're working in DC or something.
Yeah,
Or,
for the most part. Yep. And Frederick has always been kind of a little small farm community, and then probably like 20 years ago, maybe more. But it this kind of like, as happens in most places that don't have a lot of money in them, this art scene kind of came out of it.
cool.
It's got this real cool little art scene, but then as most things go, artists make the community cool and unique, and then people move to the community because it's a cool, unique community, and then the artists can't afford to live there anymore, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just think you have to have that long view of like, just
Hmm.
stick to your convictions about knowing what you're about and, your vision of your company. And I think it attracts a certain crowd and that's the crowd you want, you
I
know?
like that, man. I appreciate you saying that because I feel like we've been really at a this has been the topic of conversation for the last month, 2 months. It's just
Yeah.
like, how do we do it? What are we doing? How's this work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good
But
to hear
believe,
somebody say, believe in believe in your convictions.
yeah, because I mean, like, one of my contemporaries here, and they're awesome people. I mean,
Hmm.
awesome people. But it's like it's an old time ranch family,
Hmm.
and my God, I mean, they just throttle themselves. You
Hmm.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, the way they get employees in the door, it's like, oh, do you want to work 410s? So people, they get excited about Monday through Thursday, but then you don't work, you get shamed into working Friday,
Hmm.
you
Right.
know?
Sure.
And so it's a brother and sister team, but they'll go 7 days a week for months on end,
Yeah, that's
you
crazy.
know? And I know they're crushing it, but you know, at the same time, I'm like, at least to me, it's like, all right, I know it's good for them. And, probably financially, I don't know about mentally, but
Right.
it's not good for the trades because
Yeah,
it just sets a bad expectation.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
you know
Yeah.
and and the builders love that crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, I wish all the subs would stick together a little bit more and and try and advance a quality of life for that's as big as like advancing a quality of life for your employees is easily as big as like the wage and shop culture
I
you
think
know
so. I agree with that. I think people would disagree that maybe either don't care or don't feel like there's definitely a mentality at their mindset that's like, I'm here to get my money and I'm going home and I don't care. And
yeah
that's fine too. But yeah, definitely the type of people we would want to attract. You've got to keep that in mind because it matters to us too. I'm the same as you. Like I love to work hard. I love what I do. Um,
yeah
but I also love my life, man. I also want to. I love the flexibility. Like you
yeah
said earlier, if we have a Friday that's light and we get to go for a hike, we're in. Sounds
yeah
great. Um,
yeah
but at the same time, we do struggle with that. Well, you know, what's a little bit of growth look like? Is that
yeah
possible? Like we still don't even have a facility. We're still working out of our trucks and off our computers, out of our homes, really.
right
Because we haven't made that leap, and that's worked for us too. Not
yeah
having that burden, not having that overhead has worked for us. But
right
but it would be cool. We'd like to. We just
yeah
we're looking for the right opportunity to come along.
you could probably get by without a shop. I mean, I think it's like, if you guys wind up at four, like an
Yeah.
apprentice apiece,
Yeah.
it's a really nice workable size to,
Yeah.
I think, to,
Hmm.
maintain some lifestyle. 'Cause, it's like, that's the thing that blows my mind. Even like at eight, it's like, I mean, I'm creeping up on 60 and I can still do it, but some days I'm like, I could argue. I'm like, my God, I should just get a manager, you know,
Sure.
because
Sure.
and slick them and see how it goes. I mean,
Sure.
I want to go ride my mountain bike, man. I like,
I hear you. Sure. Yeah.
I like doing some fun stuff. But you,
I
I've heard you talk about going on the road before. You
Yeah.
should do that. That's a hell of
It
an
would
idea, I
it
think.
would be fun, right? Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. I think it's in our future for sure. And that, one more thing on that topic though of like taking it easy too. one thing that I do realize is that, like, and I always think this, when I'm getting my ass kicked, when we are getting our asses kicked, man, we are getting better. We're learning. And it's like in this, I do want to get to a point where I'm ready to be more, throttled down. But
Hmm.
in my mind at this point in my life, and not just in my mind, but in reality, I'm not good enough to be where I want to be. So I'm still in
Uh-huh.
that we're still in that process. We're not just as business owners or like whatever that means for us, or but electricians too. I want to, as time goes, continue to grow, continue to dial that and get better at that. Because I think all of those things go hand in hand, and they're like, it's never more apparent than when you're getting, when you fail, and you
Right.
have to eat it and go talk to somebody face to face about it and fix it. All of those things, and that's so inherent in like learning.
Yeah.
It's all part of it, and so like there will be a time where I'll want to throttle down more for sure. Um, and I like to also, I think that I can be in that state while I try to provide for our staff, our crew. Like I don't necessarily expect the people who I'm training or whatever to have that mindset of like they want to get their ass kicked. I just know that like I came to the trades when I was 35. Came in late,
Yeah.
and I just have so far to go in such a short amount of time, and I feel like there's a part of me that's like, you got to keep going. You got to keep diving into these things and figuring them out if you're going to get better at this. And so,
Yeah.
anyway, that's where I'm
You
at
know
right
what
now.
makes the time go though? I
Yeah,
mean,
it
when you
does.
talk about the longevity of it,
Yeah.
is I'm telling you the single biggest thing for me was and maybe this would work for you guys, but it's I mean, because you probably like the days that you and Josh are on the same job, are those like
Yes.
regarded as your your better days, you're having fun, you're getting
Totally.
something done kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
So I got, I can say that about all my guys, really,
Yeah.
you know, that it's pretty damn fun,
It
you
is
know,
fun. Yeah. It's so fun.
and
Yep.
and I got some real characters,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, just like uh, number one, they're top notch people to begin with,
Sure.
but then don't you run across these people where you're like they made one, and you know it, you're just
Yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah. I
there
love those
there
people.
there's yeah, there's like one. So
Those are my
there's like
favorites.
yeah, it's like so I know two ones up here, and so one of them up here is it's this husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
They do concrete,
Okay.
and they're like they're the best, and they've
Huh.
been the best for a long time. So I'm not kidding you. They're like creeping up on 70.
Yeah.
They don't need no money,
Huh.
and they're still out there doing it. And so when I first moved up here, they'd have their kids out there. They their kids would be in the field. I mean, the wife would be breastfeeding in the truck and then hop back in the hole. They
Wow.
homeschooled their kids. I mean,
Wow.
they're just
Wow.
there's one.
Yeah.
And so their kids are still around here and they're still pouring concrete. And I saw them at a Christmas party a couple years ago. And they're like, yeah, we can pour concrete till we're, into our 70s, but I don't know about 80. And I'm like, my God, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just mind blowing. But the other one is I got this guy, Mark, that helps me. So
Mm-hmm.
he's a Boston guy.
Oh boy.
And he's been around here a long time. He's a master hunter. So he's full time for me about 7 months of the year.
Okay.
And then he ski patrols, and he loves ski patrolling because he gets to do avalanche control stuff,
Whoa.
which is big fun for him. And but he'll still work, so he'll do 5 days at the resort, and
Okay.
then still help me too. So he
Wow.
goes 7 days a week for 5 months, and he's a crazy smart electrician. He's a
Hmm.
like union trained guy. I think he's like 4 years younger than me, so he's mid 50s,
Hmm.
and he's just got one speed. He's a he's a positive person.
Cool.
If you could have one friend, that's the guy you'd want to have.
That's
He's
awesome.
just it's really cool. And so I mean, it's like the more of these kinds of people, even if they're not a one, they're
Yeah.
still like it just makes such a big difference to
Sure.
to make your career meaningful and
I agree. Well, I'll put it this way. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, I've lost you there for a sec. You still there, Tim?
yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
there you go. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think if I could illustrate that a little bit, like I totally get that, because if you look at my high school attendance record, I had perfect attendance in high school. I was that kid. I never missed. And I didn't like school. Like I wasn't into classes, but my friends were there. And
Right.
and I wanted to go because that's where I hung out. Like you know what I mean? Well, I had to go to school, but it was tolerable
Uh-huh.
because all the people that I cared about were there. And I feel the same way about work. Like it can be so much fun. And if you're around the right people, it can definitely be awesome.
Yeah, and that's what, that's the months click by and the years click by and you're still glad to be there. You're still glad to see each other. And
Yeah.
yeah, and the other thing too is like that I've found, and this was kind of counterintuitive, but for maintaining like, because I have my days and my weeks, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
and but I've got three guys that they coach kids hockey, and when we're struggling with something or there's something less than perfect going on in the shop. I mean, if I'm not getting the result I'm hoping for,
Mm.
I can drag them in, and it's like you wouldn't believe how great it is to have guys that
Yeah.
know how to coach.
Right. Right.
You know, so it's really weird. It's good to pay attention to these little weird things that
Hmm.
just help keep all backs into the wheel.
Yeah. No doubt. It is people though. It really is.
Yeah,
It's all about the crew. It's like there's almost nothing more rewarding than building something with a team of people. It's fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I
I
love
know,
it.
and that's the other thing that'd be cool for you guys too, is like, if you can just network into, this regular set of people, that then it just kind of expands your fun crowd, that
Yeah.
then you're around your favorite carpenter for a couple of weeks, or
That's right.
your
Yeah.
favorite insulator, your favorite roofer, whoever.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
So
Well, Tim,
yeah.
I appreciate all your time and every bit of wisdom that you shared with me, man. That's awesome. I really think you got a great like tempo and demeanor, and I appreciate the wisdom for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I think what you're doing.
Yeah, man,
So
I appreciate it.
yeah, keep on keeping on.
Yeah, you too, man. I'll be excited to see. Are you starting to add things on social media?
I'm trying. You know what? It's like I'm gonna see my daughter over the holidays here, and she's gonna coach me up because I'm like,
Cool.
yeah, I'm no whiz bang, you know. So, but I'll get there, you
Cool,
know.
man. Well, I look forward to seeing them when they're up there. Where can people find you online?
Well, I am on Instagram,
Okay.
and it's at I think it's under Power to the People Electric or PTTP Electric, and
Okay.
I started following a few people. We try and get some content up there. We did have one really cool thing last summer. We did a cell site
Hmm.
up on the Divide,
Okay.
up on Colorado School of Mines Peak, and it
Hmm.
was a really fun job because it was so we we're working at about 12,000, drop
Whoa.
dead gorgeous, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
So when
That's
we
super
were,
cool.
yeah, it was great. And so it was like when you weren't running the pipe and pulling the wire, there was somebody on the spotting scope looking for animals. So
Wow.
it's a lot of fun. A lot of
That sounds
fun.
awesome. What a cool project.
Yeah, yeah, I'd do those all day long if I could.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so yeah.
All right, Tim. Well, I appreciate your time, man.
All right, take care of yourself.
You too, buddy. See ya.
All right. Yep. Bye bye.